Welcome to this week's edition of the EdTech Pulse. Today I'm here with you to go over some prompt engineering just to get you started in Copilot. So the last time that I did an EdTech Pulse, we actually introduced Copilot to the division and how we now have a secure artificial intelligence or generative artificial intelligence that we can use to support teaching in our roles. And so today I would actually like to jump into some of the actual prompt engineering components that you need to have in order to actually get what you want out of that generative AI. And so let's just get started. And so first things first, just going to jump over here. I really like this code that I had Copilot actually generate for me. So I had put a lot of information in about artificial intelligence and education, along with like the ethics and how this is an important tool. And this is what I got when I asked it to build me a quote. So, in the vast orchard of knowledge, AI stands not as the cultivator, but as a humble spade wielded by the gardener. Together, they tend to the fertile soil of learning, nurturing a landscape where the blossoms of every learner's potential unfurl. Copilot. And so, what's really important to note in this is that Copilot is a tool that we can add to our toolbox as educators. And so, it is not pedagogy. You need to take your expert lens and what you know about pedagogy, and you need to apply it to anything and everything that you take out of a generative AI. And so, with that, we're going to start by looking at the elements of a good prompt. And so there are 5 elements that make that. So lots of people will just like ask it to come up with something, come up with a paragraph about this, come up with a quote. Well, come up with is not necessarily the best beginning piece to a prompt. And so here you can see in the 5 components that the first thing that you need to have is a persona. So you need to take on a role. So, um, as an educator, if you were an educator, anything like that. So give it a specific role. Objective, start with a verb. So start with verbs like explain, identify, categorize, create a list, create an image, any of those pieces. So tell the generative AI what you want to do. And then, of course, there's the audience. Who is this for? So if I don't target a presentation that I build to my specific audience, is it going to be a great presentation? No, I'm going to present differently to adults than I do to students. And so I'm going to present differently at different conferences based on what the themes are. And so ideally, put in your audience. If it is a 7-year-old, put in a 7-year-old. Use the age, not the grade, because the grade levels have different ages in them across the world. So if you use a 7-year-old, that's going to help to clarify that for the generative AI. The next thing is to give it context. So lots of necessary information. Be really explicit with the instructions that you give it. So give it all of the background. Before I had used a prompt that said, or a quote that it said, outsource your doing, not your thinking. So put all the thinking into your prompt that you are wanting to generate. And then, of course, you're going to set boundaries. So that means set some parameters. How many words do you want? Do you want 100 words? Do you want 3 sentences? Now, note, it does like to do run-on sentences. So if you ask for 3 sentences, it might be 200 words. Maybe not quite, but you get where I'm going with that. If you want it to be put in a table, ask for it to be put into a table. So you're going to set those parameters. That is another really important component. And so here's an example from Microsoft, and I'll have the link in the swag so that you can access their information as well for Copilot. And so here are some elements of a good prompt. So what I like about this is that it's kind of simple. So this is a base one, and you can get way more complex than this, but it says act as a helpful tutor. So it's giving you the role, it's the persona. So you're a helpful tutor who breaks down complex subjects into easy explanations. I want you to explain the process of photosynthesis. So again, there's that verb explain and what you're explaining to a 14-year-old student who is your audience. And then to assist with biology exam preparation. So a little bit more in the idea of giving it some more explicit instructions, but still pretty minimal. You're probably going to have to prompt it a bit more. And then, of course, setting those boundaries or parameters. Your answer should be 300 words written in a tone that's friendly and educational. And so within this boundary section, that's also where you can add that tone component. And so they also give you three really quick tips. First one, give clear instructions. So using words like come up with isn't really telling it what you want it to do. If you want it to summarize, if you want it to compare, use those words, use those verbs. Um, Again, like I said, to assist with biology exam preparations is a pretty little piece of explicit instruction. So if you really want it to make it really specific and efficient the first time, give it more. And then, of course, iterate and experiment. So knowing that within Copilot, it is meant to be kind of like a mimic a human interaction, right? So having a conversation kind of thread. So you can continually ask it to refine as you go along. So if you don't get what you want out of your first initial prompt, keep prompting it, keep getting it to add components, take components out, whatever you think is necessary. And so, well, as we jump into it, we're going to start by looking at four different ways that you can have Copilot support your teaching. And so, those four different ways, before we jump into that, is here's your outsource your doing, not your thinking. So, this is really important as we jump into these four sections. You need to remember that you still need to do that thinking. And so, here are the four different things that we're going to do today. We're going to talk about how we can use Copilot as a think partner. We're going to talk about how we can use it to save us time as educators because we know that we have a lot of things on our plate and we really do need to focus in on making really efficient use of that time. We're going to look at how the culture pedagogy used it for example generating and kind of look at some different prompts for that, as well as how we can infuse universal design for learning into the lessons that we develop in here or the project ideas. So looking at different ways that we can engage students, looking at how we can also different ways that we can have students express what they know. And then of course we can also differentiate too for some of our learners in that space if we need to take it to that extra step. And so starting with a think partner, this is my favorite way to use generative AI. And I use it quite often, actually, I'm not going to lie. And I will have it up just in case I need to throw an idea out for any reason. And so one way that I like to use it is to introduce new topics. So when you're trying to think of that anticipatory set or an exploration activity to kind of get students engaged in that thinking, you can ask it to do that. You can ask it, prompt it to give you some different, like exciting ideas to introduce this idea or introduce this concept. And so that's one way. You can also have it personalized. So if you have students in your class that like hockey and you have other students in your class that like figure skating and whatever they might be, whatever the interests are, you can also personalize some of that content to the interests in your class without having to spend hours generating different examples for your students, knowing that. And then, of course, learning the new curriculum. Well, we know that we have a brand new curriculum, K to 6, ELA, math, um, as well as phys ed and wellness. And then our grade kindergartens to grade threes are also doing their new science curriculum this year, 4 to 6 next year. Note that it's not just the students learning the new curriculum, so are we. And so this is a really great tool to also help you learn some of that new curriculum and help to build your background as well. And so you can, number one, get it to explain different concepts to you, different cusps to you. Take that whole organizing idea, kind of plunk it in there, get it to give you all the information it can. What I love about Copilot is it does cite all of those sources. So then you can actually use it to do some fact checking as well. Because remember what I said last time? It does have inaccurate information. It does have bias in that information. So being able to actually go into the sources that it's citing from is really effective for you as a media literacy kind of standpoint. You can also get it to curate and recommend some resources. And of course, I love the spot where it can explain even this piece, explain the understanding or a knowledge or a skills or a procedure to a 7-year-old student, and then you put in that particular cusp, and then it will kind of give that explanation in words that are friendly and a good entry point for the students in your classroom. You can also use it just to help generate some questions to support your discussion. So instead of you coming up with all the questions to kind of generate different levels of thinking with your students, you can have it actually formulate those questions for you. I've even had to do it for like an animated short, and I'll show you how it does it today. You can ask it to provide you questions from Bloom's taxonomy so that you're reaching all the different levels. And so, really, a great way to help you guide deeper conversations and with your students, and even explore those concepts a little bit deeper. So let's take a look at a couple of different prompts. And so try these prompts with your new Think partner. And so I will put these, these will all be in the swag as well, or in the sway as well. And so please just like try them out. And so I'm going to quickly kind of switch between my tabs here. So what are some fun ways to introduce insert topic to insert grade? So I'm going to jump over into Copilot really quick. So how do I access Copilot again? Let's just see. It's with my other screen. So 1 second. Here we go. So if you have never accessed Copilot before, you're just going to go to a new tab. You're going to type in copilot.microsoft.com. Once you do it, it is going to take you into kind of a free version of it. So if you haven't logged in and you don't see this green protected and your name here, then choose the sign in option that's in the top right hand corner. Choose your work account. Your work account is going to give you the enterprise version that is your secure environment for using AI. If you use the personal, the free one, that information is kind of going back into the system and is not protected the same way. So here I am in my Copilot, and I'm wanting to think of a activity to support a specific cusp to start a new organizing idea. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Learn Alberta. So I'm just going to type in Learn Alberta curriculum. It's going to come up. I'm going to go right into this space because I just like to get it from its source. And I'm going to jump into, let's say, grade 2 science. I want to go into Earth systems. And so I'm going to see this piece right here, and it says components of Earth include land, water, air, plants, humans, and other animals. I'm going to actually grab this. I'm going to go Control C to copy it. I'm going to bring it back over to Copilot. Now remember how we have the 3 conversation styles? More creative is going to be for something that you're just going to kind of create from scratch. You don't need a lot of facts in this. The more balanced is kind of your everyday. So if you're looking for like meal plans and things like that, this is a great spot. If I'm looking for actual curricular kind of academic information, jump into the more precise. This is your fact finding kind of space. So I'm going to choose more precise, and I'm going to say explain the following information to a 7-year-old student. And then I'm going to put that information in. And let's see what it gives to me. So you can see it's just getting started. And so, sure, let's imagine Earth is a big house where we all live. Land. This is like the floor of our house. It's where we build our homes, schools, and parks. It's also where trees grow and animals like squirrels and rabbits live. Water. Imagine this as all the sinks, bathtubs, and swimming pools in our house. Oceans, rivers, and lakes are Earth's water. Fish, whales, and lots of other creatures live here. So this is a real basic kind of introduction to that. I can now ask it to give me more detail. So give me more precise information about this knowledge strand from the Alberta curriculum. Now, what is important to note is that this is my thread, and within my thread, I'm going to try to keep that topic all the same. So it's kind of like using the information from before to also help me generate that. And so now it's jumping into mountains, valleys, plains, and different types of soils and rocks. And so I can keep asking it to give me whatever more information I need. Now, of course, did I put in a lot of those explicit instructions or to give it that context? No, I have given a little more context here by talking about the Alberta curriculum. So now you can see all of a sudden it is starting to pull from those pieces. So another cool piece that it has started to do in the last few weeks is it has started to also generate images to go with that. And so you can see here that it has images to support the aspects along the way too. So a really great kind of UDL piece that is already infused into itself for us to use. And so this is one way that I can use it. Now, of course, coming back into here, some other ways that I have is, and so I use the explain the cusp to a student in grade whatever. Can you explain the concept or in simple terms? Summarize the main principles and illustrate with examples to facilitate understanding. This piece right here, getting it to illustrate with examples, is a really great way because how do we learn best? Through examples. And so that is something that is really great. Now, this one, I love this one. Write 10 discussion questions to talk about, insert topic, use Bloom's taxonomy. Watch how cool this is. I'm just going to start a new topic here. And I'm going to say, using the animated short SOAR, create a list of discussion questions following Bloom's taxonomy of questioning. And then I did not give a lot more explicit instructions than this, but if I want it to guide me in a certain, or I want to guide it in a certain direction. So maybe I'm looking at, here it's just obviously going into kind of like the characters in the film and that, but maybe I want to guide it more into that whole idea of like design thinking and how did this demonstrate? So I can also get to generate me questions in that regards. But here you can see how it's outlined it according to Bloom. So you have your remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating. So, I mean, you might use these verbatim, or you might just use them as ideas to help generate that conversation. And so that is something I would likely probably do. Is I just use them, like I said, as a think partner to be like, oh yeah, right, great. So really great for that kind of use. The next way that I like to use generative AI is as a time saving tool. And so we know that we have lots of administrative tasks that we have to do as educators. So building classroom newsletters, email writing or editing, sorting, categorizing information. Those are some ways that are really ethical ways to use it. So let's say, for example, I want to write an email for one of my parents. Um, so I'm writing a response back. I can write that email myself. And now I'm going to take that email, maybe put it into Copilot and ask it to remove um, any jargon, any teacher jargon from it. So that's one way I can do it. I can also ask it to take out anything that the parent might feel is offensive or might get them up in arms. So I can also ask it to do that. So that's one really great way to use it. Now, classroom newsletters, again, you wouldn't have it build the whole newsletter in one shot, but you would build out the different sections because if you just try to have it do it in one shot, you're not going to get what you want. Also having it reword and summarize, so simplifying text for different reading levels for students. Now, in that part though, you also need to be aware of like copyright. So knowing what the copyright rules are, please ensure that you're following those if you are putting text into Copilot. You can add it in synonyms to expand vocabulary. So if you're working on vocabulary, you might start with a simple paragraph and you might ask it to add synonyms to change the power of the language within it. You can also have it summarize information from an article. So if you have the whole class that's reading one article from something, you might have this summarize it at a different level for students so that, or put it into bullet points to help organize that information for some of your learners so that it's easier for them to actually consume and go through. You can also use it for curriculum planning. So creating unit and lesson plans. The only thing that I would be wary of there is, again, you're not going to create one big, huge unit plan. You're going to have it in little chunks. And then you know your students best. So ensure that based on your pedagogical style, your practices that you have in your classroom, um, consider also the needs of your learners in your classroom. And then from there, have it kind of helps not generate your actual full lesson plan or unit, but have it like help give you ideas to support that. And then have a template where you can copy paste what you want or totally remix it and retype it so that, oh, you know what, I love that idea, but I want to do it this way. And now, of course, you have your ideas blended in with that. And so that's a really great way to use generative AI. And then, of course, there's develop backward design plans. I know that Julia, and we're going to do this in another session, we are going to jump into how we can use generative AI to do backward design planning within our curriculum. And so I'm really excited for that next one. So keep an eye out for it. But also you can have it create assessments. So after you've kind of like planned that lesson, you've started with that learning outcome, you've built your learning intentions, your success criteria, you've now built an activity or a few different activity ideas to for the students to be able to grasp and really understand that. You can then create a single point rubric or a different style of rubric with this as well. So really cool time-saving tool. The one thing I know I get a lot of questions about is, hey, can I use it to give feedback? Um, Really, you are the educator, and this is where the ethical considerations come in. You need to think about yourself as a professional, and you know what is your professional obligation to the students and their learning and their progressing through the curriculum. And so, as you kind of think about that, I'm going to leave that with you. You are that professional, so you will use it as it should be appropriately used. Um, Now, I've also just in lots of things that I've read and talking with our assessment team, it can be okay to help with formative assessment to help provide some ideas for feedback. Definitely not used for any type of summative assessment in any way, shape, or form. And so these are some different prompts that you can use to help save you time. So suggest ways to rephrase or restructure the sentences to improve clarity. So that is a really great way to use it. Sometimes we can't always get our ideas across the best. And so adding that piece where you want it to improve clarity is a key in getting some better generated text. Generate reflection questions on, maybe a great exit ticket for your students at the end of the lesson. You can have it summarize into key ideas. And so that's really helpful. Sometimes just even the structure, when you get it put into structures with categories, with emojis, you can ask it to add some emojis in there too to support some of your visual learners. And then, of course, I really love the like design a challenge for us. So if you take your skills and procedures within your curriculum and you ask it to design a challenge for or some challenge ideas, and then you like one of those ideas, and then you really start to build that idea out. It's a really great way to use this as well. The third way is an example generator. And so this is actually by the Cult of Pedagogy. And I will just open this up for a quick second. They have a really great podcast, and they did this back in February of last year. And you can come in here, listen to the podcast, and the link will be in this way. But also, they just get some really great ideas. And so I've kind of taken some of these and tweaked them a little bit to suit kind of what I like to do. And so, of course, you can tweak any of these things however you want to support the way that you teach as well. So they break it down into these three categories: examples to explore concepts. So have it adopt the style of different writers or historical figures. Have it write something in a different genre. So you have that same writing, but in a different genre. And you can then have students do that comparison. You can create contrasting cases. So a great way to do, contrasting cases on, for social studies, really effective in there. Examples of processes is the second way. So learn processes and procedures, learn content and knowledge, generate correct and incorrect sequences. And we'll look at some examples to support that. And then, of course, you can also use it to explore arguments. So evaluating and constructing arguments to look at contrasting viewpoints, creating an outline for students that then, so like even having it create like a persuasive essay outline. And now the students are going to take that outline and they're going to add the topic sentence. They're going to add the details. They're going to add some examples. They're going to add their concluding sentence. And so just something to help with that framing of the structure of a persuasive essay. So just kind of to give you a specific example. So here are some prompts for that. So in regards to the concepts, create a blank number of words. So remember, put in those parameters. Review of, insert a business in the short story style, insert an author, and make it in a whatever tone or whatever genre, whatever mood. And so you can do something all like that, or you can like break that up into little pieces with whatever you're doing. Also, when it gets into the whole idea of the processes, you can give a step-by-step explanation of insert the procedure or process and insert the age level would understand. And so sometimes really breaking things down to those kind of like step-by-step pieces is really helpful for some of our learners as well. Really great for actually generating some scaffolding. building sentence frames, some other really great ways to do this as well. You can also then create two short stories about insert a plot, and then with two different moods. So now you're a character, you're actually doing a comparison of the different words used in both of them to create those moods. So again, it's kind of like that generative example piece, because sometimes it's really hard to find examples. So this way you can kind of tweak them to the way that you want them. Create an outline of a persuasive essay. I gave you that one already. Then from there, you can then add in the student interest, right? So now you've got another motivating factor for the students to help engage them as well. And then the fourth way that we're going to kind of talk about how we can use that today is through universal design for learning. And so as we look at the three guiding principles, engagement, representation, action, and expression, I can use it to help, I can use some of the prompts in here to help generate interest-driven projects, create interactive content, facilitate peer collaboration within interactive activities. So I can even ask it for a visible thinking routine that would be really effective to help students understand this. Um, you can use it for representation to diversify your learning materials. I had mentioned earlier about having it add emojis in. You saw how Copilot will actually add the images in, so then you can use those images as well to support that as well, to support your slide building even. Um, you can also, through action and expression, provide multiple ideas for the students to engage in, so giving them some voice and choice. So giving them that ability to have that flex and their own like choice of how they want to demonstrate what they learned. You can also have it build scaffolds to support learning, as well as provide some reflective questioning to help enhance critical thinking. And so, oh, I totally skipped that somewhere along the way. Let me just find it 1 second. All right, I popped out and I popped back in. So here are some different prompts that you can use to help remove some of those barriers for your students. And so what are some activators to motivate, insert your grade, students to learn about, and then insert that cast. So again, always tying it back to curriculum, really super important. What are some different ways that insert your cast could be presented to students? What are some digital tools that can make it more accessible? So sometimes we have all these like accessibility tools in our division at our fingertips that we don't always know about. And so, reaching out to anyone from your MTech team, we can help support you with that as well. But you can ask it for some ideas to help support the students that way too. And then, of course, propose different ways that students could demonstrate, insert the cusp, using a variety of means of expression. So again, kind of building that voice and choice component so that you give them different options for expressing their learning. Something that's really important though, when you do give them that voice and choice, make sure that you've also kind of taught them how to do each one of those properly so that they are set up for success. And so again, even getting it to break it down into the steps or what is expected for each of those activities does help with that as well. And so I also put in a couple of quick links here. So I put in two different prompts that can help you in your journey here as you start to really dive into using generative AI to help support your teaching. This one was shared by my friend Erin Ball, and so it's called Gen AI Chat Prompt Library for Educators. And the second one that I'm going to show you is Monica Burns's 60 must-try ChatGPT prompts for teachers. And so these links too will be in this way, so please note that you can go and grab them there. So the first one is here. This is the AI prompts for educators. And so you can see that it has them broken down into sections here. And then, of course, as I scroll through, I did choose the lesson planning one. So I chose this one here. So if I just kind of come back to the all prompts page, it gives you the choices right off the bat, and then it breaks them up here, and then you can choose the view all when you get to those sections. So I'm just going to jump into lesson planning. Now you can see here that they have gamification of an activity or a lesson plus here where you actually take one of your existing lessons and you help get Copilot to help you gamify it to make it more engaging for your students. You have lesson idea generator. This is probably my favorite. I'm not so much into having it build my lesson plans, but I do really like to have it generate some ideas with me and just to kind of bounce back and forth. I also love, like especially for science, that whole 5E lesson plan kind of model of exploring and engaging and explaining. So that to me is something that is really cool as well. So feel free to jump into that link and check it out. See how it works for you. There's also some really great like exit tickets and real world examples. So if you click into these, for example, they are going to give you an example prompt. They're just an example, but you can start to take those and tweak them so that they suit, number one, your teaching style, as I had mentioned earlier, along with the needs of your students in your class. And so that one is really cool. The second one is Monica Burns does have this ChatGPT ebook. And so I'll put the link where you just need to kind of sign up. You will get her emails, but her emails are worth reading. 60 plus must try. And so you can scroll down through here and you'll see that she has some information just about that and then gives you some different ideas for emails, gives you some different prompt ideas for new topics, introducing new topics to students. So you can see them right here. You also get some vocabulary ideas, so explain the meaning of a word, write a list of synonyms, translate, lots of components like that. And then, of course, activities. Can you provide me with some teaching lesson plan ideas for teaching this topic to these students? What are some engaging icebreakers or getting to know you activities for, returning from spring break, since that's something that's coming up? So really cool in that piece. But I also did find that she also has this too. She has a 25 ChatGPT prompts to help you teach with movies. So if you have a lot of movies kind of integrated into your, or movie clips integrated into your teaching, there are some really great prompts here too that you can check out. So I will put this link also in there. And so you can then kind of check out some of these prompts and see how you can use them in your class to help save you some time. And with that, I believe we are coming to the end of our session for today. And so thank you so much for joining me in the EdTech Pulse. I am looking forward to our next one where I'm going to bring in one of my colleagues, Julia McLeod, and we are going to jump into backward design planning with generative AI. So using Copilot to help us kind of build out our lesson idea. And so with that, have a great day and happy Copilot prompting.